Check here. I think we're okay. All right, cool. So first and foremost, thanks for people that are in the space right now. If you guys could please like and repost the space, we'd greatly appreciate it so we can get more people in the room. I was going to put some music on real quick while we let the room fill up. And then I'll go ahead and jump into doing a quick intro of what this space is about. Jenny will introduce our guests for today, and then we'll jump into our interview style questions. And at the end, like we usually do, we love to open it up to other people that are in the space to come up, let us know how you're doing, ask a question. Love to have some participation. So gonna put some music on for a little bit. Let's let the room fill up, and then we'll get going.
You're now in the place to be. It's the Web3 Artist Spotlight. Let's go. Web3 Artist Spotlight. Yeah, pop and get to talking on the spotlight. Web3 Artist Spotlight. We going live, deep dive on a hot mic. Every single show we go deeper than the surface. Learn about the artists, their vision and their purpose. From all different backgrounds, embrace the diversity. Talk about the process and the work that makes it worth it. Yo, join the conversation, it's that time of the day. When we delve into minds, find their creative ways. It's Web3 Artist Spotlight, illuminate the stage. From the canvas to the chain, from their minds to the page. We learn about the artists from the stories that they breathe. From the unknown to the frame, all grown from a seed. NFTs change the game, artistry's free. On the blockchain canvas, authenticity's key. Different genres, different styles, yeah, it's all in the mix. A background so diverse, join the clip and get your fix. Yeah, you on game, revealing tips and tricks. Come join us in the spotlight, you're on the guest list. Every week we learn and listen when creatives make the call. Share about life and artwork, we talk about it all. Hosted by Giancarlo and Jenny, stars to unknowns. Join into the spotlight where the artists truly show. Web3 Artist Spotlight. We get live and get to talking on the spotlight. Web3 Artist Spotlight. We going live, deep dive on a hot mic. Every single show we go deeper than the surface. Learn about the artists, their vision and their purpose. From all different backgrounds, embrace the diversity. Talk about the process and the work that makes it worth it.
All right. Well, I think Jenny, you couldn't hear it in the space. I hope I don't know if others maybe would have been able to hear the music. If not, you enjoyed a little moment of silence. It's all good. But yeah, I want to thank everybody that's in the space. Again, please like, repost, DM your friends, so we can get more people in the room. Wanted to start it off first and foremost, just kind of explaining again, in case there's anybody that's here for the first time or listening in for the first time, what this space is all about. And so it's basically a space I started about a year ago to shine a spotlight on talented creatives who are part of the Web3 space. These are, spaces where we want to do more like in-depth interviews to learn more about the artists behind the art. And in the process, we hope to bring greater awareness to artists, foster new connections, and more importantly, inspire people with creative passions to start their own journey in the space. It's a very inclusive space, so we welcome artists, creatives of all nationalities, backgrounds, artistic styles. So you can see today, we got our guest is a musician. So, we've had musicians on here, writers, poets, visual artists, all different types. And we also like to bring you a diverse range of voices from the Web3 space. So we'll bring people that are seasoned professionals, emerging talents. We really want to celebrate how art and creativity bring us all together. So with that said, I'm going to turn it over to Jenny to introduce our special guest for today.
Thank you.
My mic was off. Can you guys hear me? Okay. All right, cool. I think it was my Bluetooth got disconnected from the phone for some reason, so that's probably what's going on. But all right, we're good, man. So yeah, no, it's a pleasure to have you on as our guest today. Again, like we love being able to bring different kind of artists and creatives. So it's awesome to have a talented musician like yourself doing this. I wanted to kick it off. Maybe if you could tell us a little bit about your life growing up in Boston and how your ex-hippie dad and the South Boston jazz scene sparked your passion for music.
Oh yeah, I mean they always placed. Oh no, they always placed the stuff in very high esteem. Would you mind muting your mic, one of you guys? I'm getting feedback of myself. I don't know if there's a better way to handle that.
That's strange because I'm muted. Maybe do you have the restream audio on? Maybe on the computer.
Oh, should I mute that?
Yeah, mute that. That's probably
Okay,
what's
gotcha.
happening. Yeah,
Sorry about that.
no worries.
Yeah. So, uh, yes, they were, big music fans. My pops was an usher at the Fillmore East in New York, which was, this sort of historic venue, Fillmore East, Fillmore West. Got to meet like John Lennon and Jimi Hendrix and all these guys. So they were, huge into music. They had very little in the way of guidance to offer me, even though they're both writers themselves. But in terms of like career guidance, like they're not musicians, didn't really have musical talent in my family. And as far as like growing up, there weren't really too many other people on the same track as me in my sort of immediate orbit. One of my cousins played guitar. We had like a shitty rock band in middle school, but generally speaking, I was kind of like I kind of felt like the man in the arena or the man in the jungle, sort of like going it alone. Um, I had something, I some sort of calling, for lack of a better word, and I was good at it, and I really loved it. So I sort of, from pretty young, had a good sense of that this was what I was going to do, some version of music. Um, and I pretty much dedicated and modeled my life after that from that point. So I think I was 14. It's my first year of high school. I started going to Boston, as you referenced, South End, to this place called Wally's Jazz Club, which I believe is up until recently, because I think they closed, but was the oldest still standing jazz club in the U.S. Like it's the longest running jazz club. There's a little hole in the wall. They have different bands coming in every night, and it's sort of for those of you who know the history here, it's like sort of a classic cutting session where you go in, all the guys are sort of like shredding, doing their thing. You can come in and play, but if you don't, they're going to let you know. It's sort of like one of these old school jazz sessions where these stories of Philly Joe Jones throwing a cymbal at whose face? At Charlie Parker's face. Yeah, throwing a cymbal at him. Like that's kind of the vibe of that. So yeah, I mean, I was sort of immediately attracted to that. Some of these older sort of college guys kind of like took me under their wing and let me come play with them on weekends. And I started sort of gigging from there. Was doing summer semesters at Berklee College of Music. Ended up going to Berklee College of Music, joining the Global Jazz Institute, which was this sort of elite incubator touring group, 2 touring groups that they sent all over. So that was really interesting. I traveled for a while. I moved to India. This was still when I was, primarily doing drums. and I was a global artist in residence at a music school in New Delhi. Then I left there. I toured with a Sufi rock band and a modern jazz group in India for a while, and then I moved back here, started singing and producing, writing my own songs, started my own band. Um, got up to around 200 to 250 shows a year for several years on the East Coast. Then COVID and the live music was dead for a year, and I moved to Los Angeles and mostly do sort of recorded and produced stuff these days. So
Wow.
yeah, that's the sort of, I felt like a long story, but that's sort of the short version.
Yeah, no, what a journey. So many things. But and one thing I was curious about, I wanted to ask you as well is, why you chose to rebrand yourself from Isaac, your birth name, to Almost Owen. Like, what's the significance behind the Almost Owen name?
Oh yeah, my parents almost named me Owen.
There's that.
I have a lot of sort of reasons why it makes sense for me. Like I've applied definitions to it after the fact. But most of those are just being coy. Like I needed a name, and I had like already cycled through several other monikers, which I had ended up hating. So like I was just like, I need to pick something, and then I kind of ended up hating this one too, but I'm stuck with it, so it's fine. I just feel I don't know. I think this is an artist thing. Like it's like the weight of intense self criticism. Like I end up like if I live with something long enough, I'll end up finding some flaws.
Can relate to that.
Yeah.
Jenny, you can go to
Yeah,
your question. Yeah.
I can as well. I have an artistic name, and the other day I was just thinking, what if I don't want to create with AI? I think I need to rebrand. So I feel you. I feel that. So you attended an excellent music university. What was that experience like? And maybe as a follow-up, I know you mentioned that you moved to LA, but what drew you specifically to LA after being in Massachusetts?
Sure. So I guess in reverse order. Um, Came to LA. I'd been intending to move here. Like the thing about Berkeley is it's most of the people who go there end up in New York or Los Angeles. Those are sort of, I mean, maybe there are other cities, Austin, Nashville, Atlanta. Um, People end up too, but primarily they're feeder cities to the major sort of hubs of music industry, feeder schools. Sorry. Um, so LA had, I was already for like since I came back from India, I was coming out to LA like somewhere between 8 to 12 times a year for various sessions, conferences, things. I was kind of like trying to set the stage, figure out where my network was, figure out what opportunities were available to me. And every time I came out here, like something crazy would happen. Like I'd end up at like Halsey's house or some shit, like just randomly. So I was like, man, I probably got to move here. This is really cool. Um, Ironically, I moved because COVID essentially killed live work, and that was how I was making money. I had my band that was under contract, and we went from 250 shows a year to two, which was not that's a dead business. So yeah, I moved. It was terrible, but in a way, it sort of freed me to make a move that I'd been planning to for a while, but hadn't really figured out how that was going to happen. So sort of like slipped the last tether there. And yeah, I have lots of friends out here, lots of connections, lots of the weather's great. There's a lot of reasons that I like it out here. As far as Berkeley, what was that experience like? Was that the question? I just realized this mic has been muted this entire time. I hope that's not going to be a problem. I'll do better on this next time.
You're good, man. You're good.
I apologize. Yeah, Berkeley was great. I think if I can be perfectly honest, I really took it for granted at the time. I was, I was raised in Boston. I did summer semesters at Berkeley from when I was 14 through 18. So I had already, by the time I got to college, I knew, like, I think every member of the percussion faculty, like, I knew them on a first name basis, could walk into their offices, say what up to them. Like, I knew, like, I had decided I was going to Berkeley when I was 14. And like met all the professors and that I wanted to study with before I went there. So it kind of, I mean, it was great. I loved it. I think that just because I was so like into that lane, it felt like what was next, if that makes sense at the time. Now, like when I reflect on it, like I had tremendous opportunities available to me. But when you're like 16 or something, like you don't know what the hell's going on. I was just like, yeah, I'm going to be really good at drums, and that is what it was. But I'll say this: I would say that I had a really unique experience at Berkeley for two reasons. One, because I got into this Global Jazz Institute. It had just launched, I think, one semester, so half a year before I got in. There's this new program run by this guy, Danilo Perez, he's like a jazz, like one of the goats. He plays in Wayne Shorter's band. If you know Wayne Shorter, he's in Miles Davis's famous group, and he's also like a political figure in Panama. He's a really interesting dude. But anyway, he sort of like created this institute sort of incubator type program. They put two bands together, and they'd send us to various music festivals to perform, basically like advertise for the school. But the other component of it was that we would do 2 4-hour public master classes a week, where we would come in, play tunes that they'd bring to us, and then they would critique our performance in front of a live audience. So
Wow.
it would be like, and it's in front of our peers, right? So it's like, here's an open, like, none of these other ensembles have open forums, but here we're going to put you in this big room. There's going to be like 50 students who are just coming here to watch and judge you. And these guys who were coming into like Ben Street, Joe Levana, like, I remember one, it was like, after stopping the song, just being like, hey, like, how do you think that sounded? And I was like, oh, not that great. Not that great. He was like, do you think you'd ever get a gig if you played that way? Like it was, again, more of the cutting session stuff, which was brutal, but kind of all part of that culture. So I feel I'm torn because I think I had a really atypical experience because of that, and also because I felt like I kind of knew the school, knew the ropes, and I'd come to Berkeley with a really specific goal, and I didn't really have interest in sort of like doing the curriculum stuff that wasn't pushing me towards that goal. I was kind of a little like arrogant, for lack of a better word. But yeah, no, I was really like single-minded about becoming, like the best modern jazz drummer. And that, like, I wanted to sort of put myself in the best position to do that. And then, obviously things changed from there.
That's awesome. Thank you for that. Yeah, and I mean, it's interesting because I have a similar kind of experience in a way. I had a professor who was really, really hard on me in college, like super hard actually, and kicked back my dissertation, my thesis, probably like, I don't know, like 7 times. But I think he was probably critical in my writing skills. So I don't know, like I feel like people who like really push you have like a really important role in your story as well. So
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I feel like it was one of those situations. If you ever seen the movie Whiplash, it's kind of like that. Not exactly, but because these guys were like really cool, and they're like my heroes. That's the thing. Like that was the thing that made it like amazing and also terrifying. Is that like here I'm gonna go in front of an audience with these guys who like I've been looking up to, like hoping to meet one day, and they're just like absolutely shitting on me, like. And like at the one hand, I'm like, this is really painful, and on the other hand, I'm like, oh my god, Joel Votto is like telling me I suck. This is amazing. Like, you know.
So I wanted to ask you, do you have any artists who inspired you artistically? And if so, who are they?
Yeah, of course. I mean, it kind of depends. Obviously, I came up as a modern jazz drummer. I make various forms of pop music and satire. So like that's it's a pretty big spread. Um, I listen to a lot of stuff, frankly. It's mood dependent. I'd say for jazz, there's sort of two lanes. It's either post bop type stuff, like Art Blakey and the Jazz Messengers, or yeah, like the Benny Golson period, or sort of more textural piano, usually oriented stuff, or not even necessarily piano, but like John Coltrane, Crescent, Bill Evans, Keith Jarrett, that kind of textural stuff is what I find myself listening to in that lane. For more modern stuff, love Drake, love I I really listen to everything. I sort of pay attention to charts. I produce for other artists, so I kind of need to know what's going on and what's popping. So I mean, I'm a fan of a lot of stuff going on, but the sort of like my spirit music, the stuff I was like came up. Um, it's like first sort of like Led Zeppelin hard rock stuff, followed by I guess soul, like Marvin Gaye. Um, how am I blanking on names right now? I apologize. I had a Bobby Caldwell. Bobby Caldwell was huge for me. Um, and then obviously like folk singer song like Bob Dylan was a huge fan of him. My dad was really into Bruce Springsteen. Took me to a bunch of concerts when I was a kid. So I always had sort of this affinity for really great songwriting, like independent of the performance. It was like people who knew how to write things really simply that made you feel something. It's something amazing about that.
Yeah, I have in my like heavier rotation because I think Spotify actually just did their thing where you could see what you were listening to throughout the year. Springsteen and Dylan are in there for sure. Big fans of theirs.
Yeah, no, I can vibe with a lot of the styles you mentioned, and like me personally, my mom exposed me to like a wide range of music when I was growing up too. So anything from like classical rock, soul. I got really into jazz, and then even actually in college, I took like this evolution of jazz class, and the professor was like a string bass player, and he like opened my eyes to like this whole world of like artists and just kind of took me down that rat hole. But no, that's cool. It's cool to hear that.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I just like it. It is great, and I love it. But if we go into like why I made the career choices I did, like we could talk about that. But like I did, frankly, get tired of like playing a big theater of people and like finishing the song, looking out of the audience and seeing everyone like just like there's so much of like the music I got hired for is stuff that like was really fun to play, really interesting, but frankly probably would never listen to like for fun. I would listen to because it's interesting, and that's a lot to expect from somebody who's not a musician.
Yeah. So before, when you were kind of doing your intro, you mentioned a little bit that about all the traveling you did, right? I also had read up on it before that you spend your teens, early 20s, touring the world as a drummer and sideman, and you played all these big festivals across Europe, South America, Asia. I'd love it if you could paint a picture for us of like what it was like, touring. What was life like during those tours, right, on the road, and maybe what were some of the most memorable moments you have, like both positive and challenging during that time.
So I got lucky because I got sort of hired for a lot of like shorter run fly dates. So it'd be like, hey, I'm going to India I went to India for a longer period of time, but I'd go to Panama for the Jazz and Percussion Festival, and I'd be there for like 2 weeks doing a bunch of shows, master classes, stuff like that. So I am not the guy who's done the road warrior thing, who's been on a tour bus going, 300 days a year with 50 days off. My band in Boston, it was mostly regional stuff, and we were doing 5 nights a week typically. And then for the tour stuff, it was, me getting onboarded as, a gigging dude and coming on. My buddy Bansel, he's one of my best friends. He is a real road warrior. He toured with Hamilton the musical. He tours with Janelle Monáe and Jadena and like 20 other groups. Like, this dude is always on his phone. He's always in a different city. He'll hit me up and he'll be like, "Hey, bro, like, can I come to your place? Just got into LA from like Switzerland. Like, yeah, it would have been cool if you called me yesterday, but sure, come crash." That is the road warrior thing, and it is a thing. I just don't want to sort of paint incorrectly. I think, again, what I've always tried to do is figure out what is it that I am offering. Like, what is what are people ultimately paying me for when I do a job? And I would love to just like make the music that I want to make for me and the stuff that I love. But at the end of the day, most of the things that pay you are services, or you're providing some value, and the thing that's important is what other people take from it, not what I do. So I guess that's it. Like, traveling, doing all this stuff, it's amazing. Um, but like, just for instance, like, when I started out with my own band, the way I sort of build up my client list, I got contacts with venues and stuff. It started with one gig. It started with, I just, on a whim, a buddy was doing a little pop-up, um, gallery type thing. It's like for a clothing line he was launching. And it was like, "Hey, it would be really great. We're trying to get like some people in here. It'd be amazing if you could play." So I'm like, yeah, let's go. Did that. Somebody who was opening a restaurant was at that event. They saw me. They gave me their card. I showed up there. I played one night, and they said, "Hey, this is great. We made a lot of money. Can you come back?" That turned into 4 nights a week at that place. So I was at this place 4 hours a night, 4 nights a week, playing drums and singing, blowing out my voice. And it was a blast. Like, I loved doing it. The gig was kind of my gig was kind of, in a way, kind of ideal, because it was so shaped around my strengths. I sing, I sort of, I play drums, I can do things, my history is in improvisation and sort of being able to hear things. So we would show up without a set list, without anything, and we just play for 4 hours straight. We'd take breaks, but I'd just start singing songs. They'd follow me. They'd be playing stuff. I'd start like singing other songs over whatever they're playing. And we just sort of like find our way through the night, like with a sort of jazz approach to pop music. And people seem to really enjoy that because, I don't know that there are many people trying to do that. It's either like you have a really produced pop type thing or a really sort of esoteric jazz thing. But we were doing, like, I have an SPDS pad. It's a sample pad, which I trigger. And so I play with loops. So it's like, I like trigger the loop from Hotline Bling and do that shit. But then like have a blazing guitar solo for my buddy, who's like one of the best. Like, it was kind of a fun vibe. We kept the group really small. It was a trio. But yeah, sorry, I kind of got off track. You were asking like,
No, it's all good, man.
like?
Yeah. Because
I got like, I was doing that. I was playing weekends and flying out. I was doing a lot of college gigs, like fly dates for that. And it's a blast, but it's exhausting. At the end of the gig, like when I play a bar, when I play an event or something, my job is to be the party. My job is to come there and to lend credibility or gravitas to whatever event or person is hosting this thing, to like make them cool and make this thing cool, to the extent that I can. So when that gig is over, a bunch of people are going to come up to me and be like, "Hey, you want to go out to this bar? You want to go party?" I'm like, "Man, I want to go home. Like, I want to do. I've been doing this. I did this last night. I did this the night before. I did this the night before that. So it's great, and I don't want to seem ungrateful for these opportunities. But anything can become a grind when you do it every day."
Do you have any favorite venues that you've played in?
Yeah. Let me think. There is this theater in Siena, Italy. I'm forgetting the name of it. But it's in, there's like this big outdoor courtyard where everybody goes and just like drinks beer outside and eats. And then there's, yeah, it's like this beautiful theater. And if you haven't been to Siena, it's, I hope I'm not getting the history wrong here, but I believe it's like one of the few medieval cities left in Italy because basically everybody was killed by the Black Death. And so it never like went through subsequent renovations. So just there's something really interesting and cool, and like the acoustics were beautiful. I mean, I'm tempted to mention other venues just as like a flex, but you know what I mean? Like I don't know, like it wasn't really about the venue. Like there were performance, like the best, like most fun times I've had playing have been for like 2 people, probably. But you know, did I lose you? My computer seems to have.
Yeah, you're getting back into the room, but we can hear you on the space.
Okay, good. Yeah, sorry. I don't know what is going on with my setup this morning. This is totally peculiar. But yeah, no, I mean, I played Padma Jazz Festival like 6 times. I, you know, that was great because people there are just so like amped, just the vibe. I think like that was probably my favorite sort of group of gigs because it wasn't just about the sort of big festival stage that we were playing. It's like after that we'd go back to the hotel, or like on a different year, the military base they were hosting us, and like everybody from the festival would go to this one bar and there was a drum set there and people start jamming. Like it's basically all these different, all of the musicians from different acts coming together and just like playing shit, people from Panama and Cuba. And yeah, it's like a real cultural exchange of different folkloric music, of different, yeah. I mean, I always felt like the idea of music as a universal language, just like when it's spoken about that way, it feels kind of corny, but it's true. Like, I have friends who, like, I have a bunch of friends who don't speak English because I've just played with them a lot, and we just have a great vibe. Like, we don't know how to talk to each other, but when I see them, they're like, yeah, like it's just like you kind of like you play with somebody, you get on the same page, you like find some shit together, and then they're like, yeah, like we haven't talked, but I kind of like I kind of feel like I know something about you now. That makes sense.
That's awesome. Yeah, and so cool to be able to restream again, but yeah, no, just be able to connect with people like that, just through the art, right? And that's kind of goes back to like the ethos of one of the things that I talk about in space, right? Is that like how art can be this like universal language, right? And that's so cool. Just from like playing with somebody, then you just feel like this connection. So awesome. Do we have? Okay, I think I got you back
Well,
there.
like jazz is sort of inherently, like improvisational music is by nature conversational. It's because it's like I have an idea, I do it, and you're going to be reacting to that. Like that's kind of what always attracts to me. Is like, here I can sit down, we're going to play together, and we're going to try to find something new. And it's going to come from a combination of my creativity and your creativity. And it's going to be something that I wouldn't have been able to find on my own, you wouldn't have been able to find on your own.
Yeah, beautiful. So one other thing I wanted to ask you about was, so you told us a little bit about, your bit about your upbringing, college, the touring, the band. I'm curious about like, how did you discover and enter the world of crypto and NFTs? Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yes, absolutely. I just restarted my computer, by the way, so hopefully that'll be set up in a sec. But it was around the same time I moved to Los Angeles. Live work was canceled. I found myself in a new city, locked down with nothing, very little to do, and my live business eviscerated. So, I was very eager to try to figure out, what's next. How do I how do I go forward from here? Given, now that I know that this model of just being sort of a band owner alive, like there is this inherent risk associated with it. And I was always sort of aware of this. Like I'm going to get old one day and probably not want to play 200 shows a year. So there was going to have to be some process of figuring out what that looks like. This was just sort of this was like a forcing of, it forced that decision in front of me faster than I expected. So yeah, it came as a result of that. I got in, I think I moved to LA in September of 2020, I believe. Yes. So it was, right in there, right in COVID. And that was also right sort of when music NFTs were trying to first do a thing, or people were really was doing something with these 10-piece sort of bespoke collections. Mint Songs was doing a thing. They ended up shutting down. But there were the makings of an industry and a market here. And I was like, oh, cool. I had already released my first album, Late Night Dangerous, through this kind of NFT type format to begin with. I did a mailing list where people would, if they got my album, they'd get sent my like one track a day with all of this background and like a story. It wasn't like I'm like, here's how I wrote it. It was like I wrote this sort of short story, and the whole album was supposed to be sort of like a series of vignettes, even though they're pop songs. So I was already trying to sort of find different ways of releasing and distributing content. And I was like, oh shit, music is already about trying to assign an actual economic value to something of intangible value. All art is. You're saying, I made this thing, like pay me money for it. And crypto is at its core, tokenization is just that. You're saying, hey, here is either this asset or this idea or this community, this thing, this, whatever that thing is that is being represented. That's what a token is, and that gets to sort of find its own price discovery, which, say what you want about shitcoins. And I'm not advocating for shitcoins, but that actually makes a lot of sense when you think about art, like through the lens of art, because when I post a video on YouTube, it's a shitcoin too, it accumulates a currency in views, and there's virality as a consequence of how it performs on these sort of things, just as like a coin would perform based on volume. And there's a value accrual mechanism. It's just opaque. There's a bidding marketplace of advertisers who are trying to get in front of, whoever is watching my content, and they want to serve to those people. So the value transfer system is just more opaque, or Byzantine. But at the end of the day, like crypto is in many ways a lot more similar to social media than it is the stock market, just in the way that it behaves and functions. So I like a lot of this stuff felt sort of like, hey, I don't know what I can do here, but there's something interesting here. There's some way to do something, to apply my creativity here and do something that people will like and be interested in. Of course, that was like October, I guess 2021. Yeah, so right at the top. And the rest is, a bit of an uglier story. I ended up unironically staying for the tech, but saw very quickly that opportunities around art, like markets for art, those types of things, had just like completely disappeared from the space. There was no opportunity for what I was trying to do. But I was really interested. I didn't want to just like bounce because it had scratched some sort of itch. I fell down the rabbit hole. I was like diving into Etherscan, Snowtrace, Phantom Scan. I was on a bunch of different chains. I was doing all these things. I like being able to sort of like see how liquidity moved through assets on a chain through different pair. Like I just felt like there was a lot that I could learn just inexpensively by trying things here. And assuming that the market does come back at some point, there will be a way for me to launch the products I really want to launch, which are music related. But let me spend this time to figure out what this tech does and what's going on here. So ultimately ended up onboarding as an advisor to a gaming protocol, doing mostly business development work, helping them grow assets under management, doing various things. Stayed on with them for about a year, and then left last February, to start really diving into this when I got accepted to the AVAX Avasance program. And so that's what I'm really gearing up for now. I'm trying to, get all my ducks in a row for a really, really big release through Avasance.
Amazing. And I love the insights. Like, you really made me pause a few times when you were offering like your take on how crypto behaves more like social media rather than the stock market. I really thought that was super insightful. And now you mentioned that you're getting ready for this launch on AVAX. Have you had some experience with AVAX, or is this all going to be like a brand new experience for you on that blockchain?
I came in through AVAX. I came into AVAX. I bridged funds onto AVAX when C-Chain wasn't available from Coinbase. I had to bridge through, was it P-Chain or X-Chain, I guess. I don't know if anybody remembers that. So yeah, that's how I came in to DeFi. I guess I had bridge funds onto ETH before that, but by that point, I think ETH was like 3K and gas was really expensive. So I tried doing a couple things on ETH and then was like, oh my God, I'm going to be broke before I learn how to use this tech. And then found Avalanche. I don't know exactly how that happened. Frankly, I think that whole period feels kind of like a blur. I think for many. But yeah, I just tooled around, was learning, didn't understand how anything worked. So lost money just trying to figure shit out. Got rugged in the same protocols everybody got rugged in. Took my licks. And then from there, started branching out, started using, Phantom, using different layer 2s, just bouncing around and feeling like a lot more comfortable with the instruments and the tech, feeling like, especially after I worked for a year with Solidity full stack developers, communicating with them, talking about goals, talking about priorities. I'm not a developer myself, but I have a pretty good sense of contract logic and how these work. So, I feel like I'm in a pretty good position to come to a dev and say, hey, these are the things I want to do, and this is the way I should operate. And I don't have to they don't have to sort of infer all of the questions, because I roughly know what in music would be referred to as signal flow or signal chain. You have your mic, which goes into it goes into a preamp, which goes into maybe an equalizer, which goes into a compressor, which goes into audio to digital converters, which goes into your digital audio workstation. So there's a pathway that the audio signal follows to get, digitized and put into a form that you can manipulate. And I think it's kind of similar, it just I would say if I wanted to, execute a project, if I wanted to say, hey, I want to do this thing where users can do something with 9 tracks from an album and receive an album. So I would know you would either want to do a staking contract where you deposit those 9 tokens, lock them in exchange to issue a receipt token for that album, which would be burned when they remove those. And this stuff, maybe it sounds like gibberish, maybe it sounds really simple, depending on where you're at. But it's just, I think, kind of crucial to understand how to build in this space, because otherwise you're going to be talking to developers and they have no idea. I think it's similar to the music thing. It's like, even when you're talking English to somebody, you can end up speaking a different language without realizing it.
I love that. It really is its own language, that's for sure. Shout out to all the devs, that's
Yeah,
for sure.
for sure. And yeah, I mean, I work in tech, you know, and sometimes it's like you almost need somebody in the middle between like the person on the business side, you know, and then the actual developers, you know, to be able to translate right from the English and like what the business or the users need, and then how to actually like, you know, make that make sense for the developer. So totally can relate to what you were saying there. And I was curious, right? So, is all this, you know, experience that you've garnered, do you have any maybe valuable lessons and advice for other musicians or creatives looking to enter the Web3 space for the first time? I think you're on mute. Oh, there you
Yeah,
go.
so let me. This is tough because I think my biggest sort of issue that I see right now is let's talk specifically about music because that's obviously the area where where I'm trying to do things where I'm sort of most concerned. What I think is most problematic is, like I was saying, Sound XYZ at the end of the last bull market, they were doing these, they would do artist drops where they drop a single, there would be 10 pieces and they'd all be priced at, 0.1 ETH. And songs had sort of a primitive or a model. Now you have different sort of primitives. You have, obviously people who do one of ones. You obviously have versions of that Sound XYZ thing, which are like, bespoke small collections. And I would say that is sort of using NFTs to recreate the patronage model, right? You're basically saying, okay, I'm going to find like a couple really sort of big supporters with deep pockets who are going to basically fund my art. There's nothing wrong with that model. It's existed for centuries, for millennia. Like literally, it's been thousands. That's how all art has been funded in history, like mostly by the church. So there's nothing wrong with that. But it's not a consumer item. It's not a good, in my opinion. It is a, hey, here, support my thing, or it's a piece of art if somebody really believes it. But I don't think he truly believes that any NFT that exists right now is a sure bet to be like a Picasso. Like what are we talking about here? You know what I'm saying? Like, we're still figuring out what all this shit is. So the other model I've seen for musicians is this either open edition, closed edition thing, where like either you're going to say, hey, I have 300 editions of this song, which can be minted, and then it's out. Or you're saying, hey, mint this song and it's done on X date. It seems fine. I kind of feel like the iTunes model with like some nods to Web3 and what works here. None of these feel like a native Web3 primitive. Like none of these feel like they're trying to. They all feel like they're trying to rivet like monetization schemes that have existed in Web 2 onto this place. I think there's a place for that. And I think like we'll get to a place where that probably makes more sense when the market is larger. But if my goal is to approach a mass market, what the hell am I doing in crypto? Like there isn't a mass market here right now. The market is fairly niche. And to me, that's a huge advantage because when trying to reach your customers, consumers, fans, whoever, you have a much clearer idea of who you're trying to reach. And, I have a very specific goal, project type of person in mind who I'm trying to like, quote unquote, touch with my work. And I don't have to guess. I don't have to pay Facebook an arm and a leg to figure out who my fans are. So that is, as much as it's a disadvantage, to have a small market, it also can be a huge superpower if you understand, what you're trying to do, who you're trying to market to, and who like the sort of ideal consumer of your product is. So what I'm is develop some sort of model, standard, primitive, meta, whatever you want to call it, for breaking music on chain. That doesn't try to sort of impart the values of a overly bureaucratic and crusted music industry with all sorts of inefficiencies. I'm not trying to take those and apply them here. I'm trying to do something that speaks to the people in the space, and meets them where they're at with products that they already sort of have some relationship with, understand how to use, understand how to buy, sell, all these things. So again, I think the onus is maybe I'm more sort of, or something. I don't know. More, corporate is not the right word. More entrepreneurial about this stuff, but like I think the onus is on the artist to figure out how to package their art in a way that people will want to sort of buy and consume and engage with. It's not like the obligation is not on the listener to get me. The obligation is on me to make them get it and like see the value in it.
Again, like really great insights. I think you're the first person that's like introduced a lot of these ideas, certainly to me, but possibly to our space. Thank you for that. And I wanted to ask, you have on your profile that you are the founder of Stop Loss Studios and that it helps others with content creation. So maybe you could share a little bit about that with us.
Yeah, well, that's kind of a LARP because I literally registered the company 2 days ago. So I just changed my profile to add that. I could talk about what I'm trying to do, but right now I feel like I'll just sound like a tool. The idea that I've talked about this model, this meta. I'm trying to, the first step for me is I'm trying to do a launch using this meta. Hopefully that will be successful. Hopefully it will be incredibly successful. And then that becomes something that I can sort of export and iterate on both for myself, but also for other artists in my orbit who are like, super talented, but maybe don't know how to package and monetize their creations. So I would like the ability to like sort of serve as a agency, management, launchpad, public like distributor for, I'm in LA. I got my buddies who make amazing music, but don't know the first thing about this space and are frankly super intimidated. So if I can sort of, handle all that stuff for them and figure out how to like package the stuff they're already doing in a way that's accessible to people here, that just feels like a no-brainer. It's a slam dunk.
I love it. Wishing you much success on that.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, that's awesome. And yeah, it's crazy that you just just registered the company like a couple of days ago. So awesome. The other thing I was going to ask you about is, do you, are there any songs, a song or songs that you've produced that you're most proud of, right? Or you feel like some of your greatest accomplishments and why?
Good question. I think the project I'm most proud of is one that I've actually taken down off YouTube because I'm embarrassed of it, which is weird. Now that I'm saying it out loud, I sound to myself like an insane person. But basically, it was before I was under this name. It was my previous one of my many previous artist monikers. There's a song that I produced and recorded out. Whoa. And no, you're good. I shot a music video. I went and spent summer on my buddy's couch in New York. And every day would consist of me getting up, going out on the street with a cardboard sign on my chest that said, "Hey, would you like to, or would you be willing to, like, sing a little 30-second clip for a music video I'm making?" And I literally spent the entire summer in New York on the streets trying to get strangers to sing for me on camera. And then I found the best clips. We shot over 1,000 people. Got over 1,000 New Yorkers to sing for me, which is, in retrospect, wild. And then lip synced it all with the song. Found the best clips of those. I think we ended up using about 200 of the 1,000, and synced it all for word with the song from front to back. And I took it off YouTube because I was embarrassed of the music component, but the video is so fucking good. I was still really sort of self-conscious about my voice. I hadn't really figured out how to sing in a way that I could stand to listen to yet. It was really early in my sort of writing. And it's sort of I don't know if it'll make sense. Like, I spent all these years like training, becoming a professional in jazz, sort of like having these expectations of myself to perform at the highest level. So that when I started singing and writing, like I would listen to myself on recording and just like, I know what this shit is supposed to sound like. And it's not that. So that was just like deeply painful and embarrassing for me for a long time. But I've gotten over that. And I also have I'm a much better singer now.
What do you feel like helped you overcome that? Was it just putting
What, the
yourself out there
imposter
more?
thing?
Yeah.
I didn't. I mean, I
I
still
still struggle with it.
still like
Yeah.
I still like am my own worst critic. There's a song called Worst Enemy. It's good. I'm feeling like my own worst enemy. I've been pretty heartless. I've been on some dark shit. It's always been there instead of me. Somewhere neath the surface, I let it out on purpose. I'm a volunteer to the pain. Don't need no one else. Nothing to fear when the worst things I do to myself. Because yeah, like I think this is very common. That like also why I think this meta idea is a good one, because I think this is related to not only medium but price discovery. Because like, who is to say what the value of my music is? Like, who am I to tell you how much it's worth? Who are you to tell me what it's like? Nobody knows how to value this shit, because the offering is sort of abstract as well. Like, I was talking to my old client. I was trying to explain what I'm doing here, because he's not, a crypto guy. He's a guy who used to play, company parties for him twice a year. A friend of mine. I was just explaining. He was like, "Wait, the music is the NFT. I need to get this. Like, I don't understand what this is." And I was like, "Well, so you would pay me a bunch of money to show up and play at your party. What did you get out of that?" He was like, "Oh, it was the vibration." And I'm like, "Okay, so like you cannot point to any sort of tangible value that you receive from that. It was just a feeling. So like, what is fundamentally different from that and buying a token that, like the value comes from the sentiment that people apply to it. Like, yeah, you can add utility, you can do all these things, but like with art, the value always comes from the sentiment of the listener or the relationship or those things. It's not about, people looking for intrinsic value. Like, yeah, it's like, why are you trying to do fundamental analysis on art? Like, that's not what we're here for."
Mm-hmm. Fully agree. Man, and but by the way, that other video of you getting all these New Yorkers to say, I feel like you should share that. Yeah, like I would love to check it out.
I
one of these days.
probably will. I'll probably do it. Like, my hope is that I get really big and establish credibility, so I can like release it and be like, "Hey, look at this thing I did when I was really bad at this shit."
Oh man, I bet it's not as bad as you think. But and now, is there? I know you had shared with me a few SoundCloud links. I was curious if there's any particular song in there you want me to play for the audience so they can hear a bit of your music.
Why don't, if I could, I can give like just a little. I'm still wrapping up and in the final stages of this. I will have info soon. But yeah, going to be releasing an album's worth of material. And it's all specifically targeted at this space, in the sense that like I am trying to find ways to kind of satirize what I see as I don't think of myself as judgmental, but just like absurdity here, because I think there's no shortage of it and it's funny. So like what I'm basically trying to do with this project, since the only people in this space right now are people who are native, I want to write songs for them for this project. Kind of like poking fun. So like the white paper, I think like it says something like this collection is going to be, it uses age-old blockchain technology to present the zenith of cutting-edge 20th century technology, adding music to picture. Like just because like everybody in this space is like, here is the future of finance, is the next big thing. It's like everybody's like so up their own asses about what they're doing, and it's like, yeah, like nothing about this is fundamentally novel. The thing that is a 0 to 1. The thing that is a technological advancement is just the concept, and it's just concept and execution. That's it. You don't need to be the future of anything if you just have a good idea that you execute well.
I love that. And I love that you're inserting levity into it because, yeah, I mean, anytime that you can step out and, see the bigger picture and find humor in that, I think is really good. And I think it's important for people in the space to also laugh at themselves a little bit too. I think that's healthy.
Yeah, I mean, this is a good cue up. If you could play Story of a DJ and Giancarlo, this is called Story of a DJ, and it's about a dude who blows up his account repeatedly.
Awesome. Yeah, which link is it in the ones you sent me? Is it first, second, third?
You were just playing it a second ago.
Oh, okay. So I think it was the first one. Yeah, I think I was about to start Story of a DJ.
To rock, call him exit liquidity. He got one last shot. This is the story of a DJ. His account in shitcoin season. That's alright, that's okay. You can make it all back, it's one trade away. Doubling down like dip 2 feet in. No, he came to ball, but he got his beat in. That's alright, that's okay. But he can make it all back in just one trade. This is the last shot, so he go to Uniswap. He pull up a contract, he think this is gonna pop. He hit the approval, but something that he forgot. The slippage was turned up, now homie is getting rocked. If there is a lesson in any of this, it's don't enter a market till you know what it is. I made this mistake too, I admit it, but I've learned when to cut bait, and therein lies the difference. This is the story of a DJ blew up his account in shitcoin season. That's alright, that's okay. You can make it all back, it's one trade away. Doubling down like dip 2 feet in. No weekend to ball, but he got his beat in. That's alright, that's okay. But he can make it all back in just one trade.
Story of a DJ.
Dude, I freaking love that. That's great. The music is awesome. The lyrics, I mean, it's fantastic.
Thanks so much.
Is it?
Yeah, no, I'm proud.
Yeah, dude, it's amazing. And is there another one of these in the ones you want me to play any of the other ones you shared?
Sure. Yeah, I think the next one is, if I'm not mistaken, is Why Too Crazy. That one would be cool because I get to my one of my really good friends, Lindsay, is singing on it. She's an amazing singer, amazing writer. She's written stuff for like Rihanna, a bunch of cool people. She's like just super dope. I don't know if I can't tell you her last name because she isn't sure if she wants to be doxxed in the space yet. But I'm going to be doing more stuff with her in the future, and she's just hear for yourself. She's amazing.
Which one is it? The Arena or what's the other one?
That one's good too, but Why Too Crazy?
Oh, Why Too Crazy? All right, hold on. Okay, I see it. Why Too Crazy? Oh no, it's telling me the track is private. Wait, can I play it? Okay. Yeah.
I'm feeling why too cray, cause I'm way too crazy. All these front tech bitches tryna have a baby. Catfish me once, said shame on you. I need verified shit, want that check on blue, want that check on X, but I don't really need it. I spread through contact like mimetic diseases, or leak DMs of Congressman Wiener's penis. With this many exes, bitch, you better believe it. Got my wallet keys in a hotel suite, when she tie me down like that's to me. Take out the ledger, but she want to see. Pull out game, it's feeling like my stop loss.
Never loved like I'm Jay-Z. Superhuman ever since they paid me. Call me my name, you won't escape me. Got these bitches screaming, why too crazy? Never loved like I'm Jay-Z. Superhuman human ever since they paid me. Call me, you wanna stay me. Got these bitches screaming, why too crazy? I'm sending millions like a millennial Donatella. Go and tell her, bring her friends for all the fellas. Cause we buy all the bottles, making it rain like a shower. Flexing like we won the lotto. It's like we're like some Movado. My dough, like I'm cold as ice on the blockchain. Running like I'm John Wayne. Running up to the top of the game. My pockets packing, baby, what's happening? So much BTC, I'm like a motherfucking acronym. I'm laughing all the way to the bank. Bad bitch on my arm, cause we both got the cake. Call it a crypto cake, she bite the pillowcase. Aftermath of a couple racks like Y2K. Level up like I'm Jay-Z. Superhuman ever since they paid me. Call me my name, you wanna stay me. Got these bitches screaming, why too crazy? Level up like I'm Jay-Z. Superhuman ever since they paid me. Call me my name, you wanna stay me. Got these bitches screaming, why too crazy?
Lindsay,
So good.
fire, right?
That's great.
Yeah, she's crazy. Yeah, she's a really interesting one. She's Jewish Jamaican girl. So she's there's a lot. She got a lot going on.
Man, I'd love to check out even more of her stuff too. If you want to
Yeah,
share
yeah.
or pimp,
I'd love to put you in touch with her. I just got to get a little more clarity from how she wants to be engaging with this space. And, she has her own artist name. She's not sure if she wants to, like, brand wise, do this kind of music and associate it with that because, for obvious reasons, because her shit is so different. And I'm all for that. I also think she should have. I have a couple monikers that I've picked out for her. Then they're all really funny. So I hope she chooses one.
yeah, it's so awesome. So Jenny, you want to go to your next question now?
Yeah, sure. So outside of music, what do you enjoy doing?
Good question. Well, I like long walks on the beach. I like poetry. I like I don't know, man. I like music a lot. I think it's cool. I like feeling like I'm in a position to do shit. I like feeling like my friends can count on me and use me as a resource. I really enjoy working, frankly. I don't have that many hobbies. I have goals, I guess. I put my girlfriend and I right now we usually we try and find like co-op video games to play together sometimes. So right now we're playing this game Borderlands and just like murdering shit together, which is pretty fun.
Love it. That's dope.
But yeah, no, I work a lot. I like this. I like doing it.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, if you love doing it, it doesn't really feel like work, right? Just you enjoy it. So no, that's awesome. And I love that you and your girlfriend play games together. That's so awesome.
She's the gamer. Actually.
Oh, really? Did she get you into
absolutely. Yeah. I don't really play. She she smokes me, by the way.
That is awesome.
I've been trying to convince her, like, she should really start like a Twitch, like she would crush it as a gaming streamer. But I don't think she wants to do it.
What are some of her top playing?
She got channel on Instagram once, and then she just kind of let it die because it was like too much work. And she has like a real person job, so like the idea of maintaining this is not as attractive to her as somebody who's trying hustle their way to the next like startup or whatever. Us crazy people.
What are some of the other like top games she likes playing?
She was really into whatever the most recent Zelda game was on Nintendo. What else? She likes strategy games. Her and I we do some of that. My brother is like the biggest nerd in the world. Him and I play this game asynchronously. This is kind of embarrassing. What is it called? 18xx. X games, if you know what these are. It is like literally the most nerdy shit. And honestly, I think crypto people would love this game because it's so basically the theme is like you are operating a railroad company in the 1800s in America, and you have to try and through various tactics beat the other players who are also operating companies. And you can do that. There are like stock rounds, so you can do like hostile takeovers. You can strip a company of its assets and then dump the stocks on other players in the game. There's all sorts of, it's sort of like is meant to sort of mimic the like monopolies and like crony capitalism of the time, and like you're trying to act as ruthlessly as possible to bankrupt everybody else. So yeah, I mean, I guess that would be a hobby. I play like board games and stuff.
I'm a huge fan of games. Actually, I have a whole closet full of them. So, and I do love like strategy board games. So at first when you were mentioning like Railroad, I was thinking of like Ticket to Ride, which I just played, a fun one. But I love like Settlers of Catan.
I should tell you,
Yeah.
my parents taught me to play poker when I was 4.
4.
Like I was the youngest of my generation in the family, so like we do these family get-togethers, and there are these pictures of me like as a 4-year-old just like bluffing the shit out of the table, like playing Hold'em. So like I'm not a good poker player, but I can beat, like my brother is a very good poker player. He's a very good board game player, but I always beat him because he plays well. He plays the game well, but I just know how to play him. And I think like this feels like random and tangential, but this feels like sort of a metaphor for like how I've approached my career. Like you don't have to win on every front. You just need to find like the areas in which you excel and figure out how to like make that work.
I think that's solid advice. Oh, go ahead, Jenny.
No, I was just going to say that's a mic drop one right there.
Yeah, like I actually had one of my favorite teachers at Berkeley, this dude Jamie Haddad, who plays percussion with Paul Simon. He actually brought me to Paul Simon's house once. I got to spend a day in the studio with him, with Paul actually. But he's this like crazy percussionist. He was a jazz guy, back in the 80s in New York, and I think like in his late 20s he was like really struggling. Didn't know, kind of like I was. It was sort of around the time when I was trying to figure out like, am I playing drums? Am I doing something else? He like kind of mentored me because he was a jazz drummer. He had a similar sort of existential crisis, and he ended up getting a Fulbright grant and going to India to learn hand percussion, and then became like one of these dudes who he was like one of the first major guys to like adapt jazz drum set playing to hand percussion and make these hybrid sets. Like if you look at videos, he has like the most insane, weird like percussion instruments you've ever seen. He has drumsticks that he like found in the woods and whittled. He has brushes that he made out of like brooms that he chopped up. Like he has all this crazy shit. He plays with Paul Simon. He does all sorts. I mean, he's the guy. The stuff he makes is amazing. The textures he finds are like, he is like, there's nobody who can do what he does. And it's not flashy. It's all texture, and it's all sort of taste and aesthetic. He's sort of like, if you can imagine like Rick Rubin in jazz form, that's him. But yeah, his whole thing, I remember, he was head, I think, was it Oberlin or Cleveland State or something? He commuted to Berkeley 2 nights a week and just stayed over because he was head of the jazz program in Cleveland at this college. I forget what. But he'd stay over in the dorms, and he'd just, I was there. We'd go and hang out in his office, and we just fucking play with 2 drum sets. Sometimes like other people come, and, like smoke weed, hang out. These were my professors. And his thing, he was like, hey man, like you don't need to play all this shit. All you need to do is learn one beat. If you can learn one beat and learn how to play the fuck out of it, like you will always have work. Like All you need to do is learn one thing and learn how to do it well. And I'm not saying that's the only approach. There are people who do lots of things. My buddy Vansel, like I said, he tours with Hamilton the musical. He can sight read anything. He plays the Janelle Monáe, but he can sit in on a jazz gig and crush it. He is the most comprehensive musician I think I've ever met. They're like, just for a point of reference, when I started that trio gig, he's a drummer. That's his trade. Him and I were both drummers. He played drums in my band when I started singing. But this trio gig, because of the limitations of the gig, I had to play drums and sing. I was like, hey, bro, like, we've played together a lot. I know you don't play bass, but do you think you could learn? And by the next weekend, he was playing 4-hour gigs with me on bass.
No way. Wow.
Yeah. It's not because he knows how to play bass. He just has great ears. And like, I don't need him to do complicated stuff. I just need him to use his ears, and like, he'll know when not to play. He'll know when to play. He'll know when he doesn't know what's going on. Like, and he'll make good choices. And ultimately, that's what you're looking for from people you're working with, at least for me.
That's awesome. So I want to take this moment.
Talent. It's more taste and sort of aesthetic and good decision making, I guess.
Yeah. I want to take this moment just real quick. Again, thanks to everybody that's listening in on the space. If you guys do want to request and come up, if you have a question you want to ask Almost Owen, or just let us know how you're doing, how your Friday's going so far. Would love to have you up here. So please go ahead and request. One other thing I wanted to ask you, and we usually ask this of all our guests, what are your top 3 favorite movies of all time? You had to pick 3.
Top 3 favorite movies. I don't know if these are favorites, but I'll say ones that like have a memory association for me. There's this movie called The Third Man, Orson Welles. It's old, like 50s, I think. It's basically, the premise is this dude who goes to Vienna at like post-partition, post-partition Vienna or Germany. Basically, you have the Soviet side, you have the West, and he comes there for a job that his friend gives him, and he shows up there and he finds out his friend's dead. He's just this American like swagger, basically a cowboy. And so he decides he's gonna like become a detective, and it's like basically a noir where he's like a detective trying to figure out what happened to his friend. But he's not a detective. I remember watching it because he loved the movie when I was 12, and I was like, oh, this is ominous and cool and interesting. And then in college, I watched it with my cousin, and I realized that this dude is literally taking massive shots on camera in every scene. And the movie hits completely different when you realize this whole sort of noir detective quest is just, he's on an epic bender. He's just shit-faced the whole movie. And that's why everyone is like being mean to him. Like, and his friend died. It's not just like they're being mean to him. It's like, no, like, you have to understand he's actually drunk. Like, he's supposed to be drunk. It's part of the story. And that was poignant to me because it was just one of these moments. Wow, the meaning of this thing completely changes because I didn't understand what this thing meant when I first watched it. I can't recall other instances, but there are a lot of things like that. I know, like, books I've reread, which have meant something different to me. Songs I've heard later where I heard something different or something else stuck out to me. So, like, yeah, there are works that always touch me, stuff. But usually it's in that. It's usually when, like, you think you have an understanding of something, but then you notice something else, and that reframes how you viewed it. Those are the kind of things that are really sort of catch my interest.
Completely can relate to that, both on the front of like re-listening to music that I had loved or had a certain meaning for me when I was younger, and then kind of like listening back to it again later, and now being in a completely different state in my life and it meaning something completely different. Were there any other movies like that also kind of touched you, or besides The Third Man, other ones that you think had kind of an impact like that for you, or strong memories?
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, the only movies that are coming to my head right now are dumb ones.
Go for them.
Unfortunately.
Which ones?
Fuck. I'm really drawing blanks. I have watched movies in my life, I promise you. I watched Monty Python on the Holy Grail the other day. I gotta say, for me, it doesn't hold up that well. I found it funnier as a kid, but Monty Python was big for me. Like Philosopher's Song, and what? Oh, yeah, Manuel Kant was a drunk peasant who was very barely stable. Heidegger was a boozy beggar you could drink you under the table. Aristotle was a bugly. Just as Schlegel. Even Socrates himself was bitterly missed. A lovely little thinker, but a bugger when he's pissed. Yeah, just like that shit is fucking amazing. I love limericks. Like, big fan of wordplay.
All right, so we do
So I
have.
didn't answer your
Oh, go ahead.
question,
Yeah,
sorry. I didn't answer your movie question. I'm drawing blanks now. Sorry.
that's all good. We can come back to it if you think of another one later. It's all good. I know we do have our friend Nefemi up on the stage. How you doing, man? Happy Friday.
Happy Friday, Giancarlo. Hey, Jennifer, how you doing? Hope everybody's good. Hey, Owen, thanks for sharing your story. It's always nice to hear a musician in the space. I think I have a couple of questions. I think the first one for me is, since you moved into the
It's
web,
only happening right now.
can you hear me?
Do you hear Nefemi?
I don't.
Darn.
Well, maybe I can ask and someone can translate the
It still
question.
says he's a listener.
What your question is to almost Owen. Go ahead.
All right, cool. So my question is, what would you call the most successful thing you've done in the Web3 space? And obviously, you define success however you want to define it. But what has been to date, your most successful venture into the space?
Okay, so he asked, what would you call your most successful venture or thing in the Web3 space? And he said, success is defined different ways, but what would you consider your most successful venture in the space?
I'll tell you when I have one. I'm still figuring it out. I would say that I've learned a lot. I have executed strategies that have been profitable, but I haven't really made any money related to my music here yet. And I also haven't launched. I launched an NFT on Mint Songs, which nobody bought, and then Mint Songs disappeared. So I don't know that. And that was like 2.5 or 3 years ago, and I literally didn't know what I was doing. I was just like trying to figure out what the hell this stuff was. I didn't even understand the notion of an NFT. The only models I saw were the ones that existed, so I assumed people know what they're doing, and this is a product that exists in the zeitgeist and in people's imaginations. It was like, no, nobody knows what the fuck. That was the secret. Nobody knows. All you're doing is saying, hey, I'm going to create this product, collectible, be a bird, whatever, but it's going to have a value that I'm setting or is being set by market, and that value justifies itself as a result of the connection the people who are buying it have with that thing. And then it's your job to make that value prop stick, right? So I have a lot of optimism. I've gotten a lot of I have sort of people who I respect and look up to, who are sort of who seem to have an interest in seeing me do well in this space. I've been hesitant to sort of try to monetize myself because I have a really sort of clear idea of how I want to approach this, and I don't want to. Yeah, I just don't want to distract myself with stuff that doesn't line up with that. So yeah, I have a particular way I'm planning to sort of go to market here, and that's I have a whispering up like, yo, why haven't you released this stuff? What do you do? And it's like, I'd like to, but I have a strategy and approach in mind, and it'll work or it won't. But I don't want to, have it not work because I didn't try it in the first place.
All right, for sure, for sure. And I do think learning a lot in the space is huge success. When you do launch that project, just let us know. We'll be ready. We'll be here waiting for you to launch. My next question, I don't know if he can hear me, so Jennifer, if you can help with the translation. All right, cool. The next question is,
Sorry, what's that?
Oh, no, he's going to ask another question. I'll relay it to you.
All right. As a musician, I think, especially jazz, a lot of improvisation goes into play. How does your music and thinking of improvising with people, how apply that to other parts of your life, particularly doing projects that are outside of music?
Okay. So as a jazz musician, you guys are known for being able to improv. How does your improvisational skills, or how do you use improvisational skills outside of music on other things that you do?
This is kind of like a chicken and egg question. Because it's like, what is the thing that compelled my to improvise? Was it the fact that I had ADHD / I'm creative / like where is creativity or the ability to create things derived from? I don't know. I know that I'll say this. I'm just trying to answer this question in a way that like actually clarifies something. There are times I'm on stage with people, improvising, let's say, like a jazz band, and it can sound right but not feel right. If that makes sense. And that usually has to do with somebody in the band just not being on the same page. Because it only takes one. Like, it only takes one person who is not on the same page in a band to make the whole band sound bad. And what's weird about this is it's like all of the I'm a fan of, I would say I'm pretty pragmatic, practical. I don't like sort of descriptions, like metaphorical descriptions of things that like don't actually give you anything to latch onto. Like when people are explaining stuff, but it might be the best I can do in this case. Like, I remember a session with Kenny Warner, like it was a trio, like piano, drum, and in those situations, like often the issue is, a piano doesn't have the same sort of ability to project that a drum set does. So, he would sort of advise, he would be like, hey, like, don't listen, like here, like put your attention at the ceiling. Like, try and imagine that you're like, put yourself in a position where you're listening from above where we are. Which sounds like crazy and like it doesn't make sense, but there's something to it. Like, there are weird sort of visualization things you can do that just, it's really just about sort of bringing your attention to something else. And it's like, oh, when I do that, I'm now, instead of thinking about what I'm doing, I'm thinking about what does the mix sound like overall in the room. And then I start to see myself, instead of as somebody playing drums, I start to see myself as a piece of a larger puzzle. And my role becomes subservient to that because I'm trying to serve something larger. And then, if somebody's not listening, if they have their beer ears on, or if they're just like playing licks, doing stuff from memory and doing stuff that's rote instead of actually like trying to be present with you in the moment and make something, you can always feel that. So I think like, I don't know if it created, but it revealed my interest and capacity for creativity, certain kinds of creativity. And I also think it gives me a good sense of like people and communication. I think it's like an intuitive sense of what somebody is bringing to the table when they're bullshitting. I don't know how good that read is, but it's served me decently well.
Cool. Thank you very much. That was like amazing insights there. Never thought about
usually tell when somebody's phoning it in. I'll say.
All right. Yeah, thanks. And I think one more, my last question before I step off.
He has one more question. He said thank you previously. Go ahead.
Yeah. Yeah, I heard you. I think I kind of had my phone away, but I heard you talking about this Rick Rubin of jazz drumming. Who's this person? I think I need to go find them too.
Yeah. So earlier you had mentioned the Rick Rubin of drumming, and he was interested in knowing who that was so he could look him up.
Yeah, that's that, by the way. Look, Jamie Haddad, Jamey, last name Haddad.
Jamie.
It's like let me see if I can find this video. There's one I really like where he's talking and just you'll see what I mean by the Rick Rubin comment in this. It's for this like Cleveland Jazz. Let's pulling this up right now. I mean, there's all sorts of crazy videos of him up there, but yeah, you can't go wrong. Just check him out. Awesome guy.
All right, for sure, we'll do. Very nice to learn about your work. Look forward to seeing more stuff from you. I'm going to step down. Everybody have a happy weekend. Peace.
Thank you, Nefemi. Always appreciate you coming up. Always, got some great, insightful questions as well. And yeah, I don't think we have any other speakers lined up. So I just wanted to take this opportunity to thank everybody that was on the space listening today. And a big thanks to our guest. Almost open, pleasure getting to learn a little bit more about your story, about your music, your career. I really love some of these new tracks you're creating that have like this, in that crypto, NFT niche, so looking forward to seeing more of those. And I don't know, is there anything else that you haven't shared with us, or are there things that you got coming up, other projects, goals, or things that maybe you want to share before we wrap up?
Yeah, I mean, just basically at this point, keep an eye open. I am moving into the final phases of, getting my ducks in a row to launch, to start launching this, meta I was talking about, the album, in NFT form. So I'll be able to tell you guys more about that soon. Again, I'm very against sort of presenting information publicly before I'm, sure that I know what I'm talking about. So just getting a few things nailed down, and then I'll be able to talk more openly about it.
Cool. Well, looking forward to it. Thank you so much for being our guest today. And thanks to everyone that was here. Thanks, Jenny, for co-hosting. I hope all of you have an awesome Friday, a wonderful weekend. For those that are going to be at Art Basel next week, I look forward to hanging out and getting to, in some cases, meet you in person or just reconnect. And yeah, I hope everyone has a great weekend. Thank you.
Thank you guys so much for having me. I really appreciate you both and all of you listening. It's been a really awesome time. And apologies once more for all the technical difficulties. I'll figure out my shit for next time.
It's all good, man. It's all good. All right. Take care. Bye, everyone.